Hi, Robert Cook here. Today we're going to be talking about AMI script. This is a bit more of an advanced topic, but really once you start to understand the fundamentals of AMI script, there's really powerful things you can do inside the product. So this is really what lets you take your dashboards to the next level. High level, really three things. It's a combination of three languages. It's very close to a Java language. It also has SQL, and it also has string templating. So we're going to go through each one of those, but that's just a quick introduction. So first off, I think the easiest way to get started is to actually create a new data model. And the reason for that is because a data model actually is actually AMI script, really. So I'm going to go ahead here and say add data model to world, and I'm going to go ahead and just choose our familiar country table next. And believe it or not, this actually is AMI script right here. It's very simple, but it's AMI script. So I test this, I run it, and we get back this table that we're familiar with. But I want to talk a little bit about now why I say this is AMI script. First off, we support the string templating. So for example, select star from country where $where. So where is a variable. That's actually a variable, and the $squiggly mark says run that, run whatever's inside there and return it. So let's hypothetically say, and by the way, that's the where for legacy reasons is one variable that gets predefined before you run the query. But I'm going to go ahead and create a different variable instead. So I'm going to say string demo equals true. Okay, so I could basically replace where now with demo, and what's going to happen is it's going to run select star from country where true, right? And if I go to the debugger tab, we can actually see the query that it ran, select star from country where true. Hypothetically, let's say I replace this with false. So I'm going to go ahead and say false test. And now we get no data back, right? Because it ran select star from country where false. Okay. But I could even be more clever than that. So for example, I could make, instead of just a simple variable here, it could be it could be two variables. So let's go ahead and just copy this, call it demo and demo2. And we'll say FAL, oops, I hit insert, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and say TRUE, right? So now I could say equal where demo plus demo2. Okay, so what's going to happen here? We're going to take demo, which is TR, and then we're going to take demo2, which is UE. That's going to get substituted. That's going to result in true, and then we're going to return, and then it's going to execute that, right? So basically, you can use string templating wherever you see this blue stuff. So another example would be, and this is getting into now a little bit more of the Java stuff, would be, let's say I want to actually do an alert, session.alert, hello, something like that, right? So now it's going to, if we look through the script, it's going to define a variable, run the alert method on the session object, which by the way, there's one session object per session. So that's how you kind of get to the root executions like alert. Session.alert, hello, and then it's going to run that query, test. Boom. So we see it popped up the alert hello and then ran the query. But we could also use string templating inside here, $demo, right? Little silly, but basically now demo, so it's going to say hello TR. So hello TR, and then it executes that, okay? So that's a quick example of us now using some very simple Java, and then some running some queries with some string templating inside there. Now, we can do more interesting things though. So for example, in Java, you can create for loops. So I'm going to go ahead and create a for loop. I'm going to comment this line out, by the way. I'm going to create a for loop. For int I equals 0, i's less than 5, I plus plus. Okay. Now I can go ahead and say run this, and what's kind of weird that's going to happen is it's going to run this 5 times, but the problem is it's just going to replace that local table. So we're just creating country. So it's just overriding itself over and over again. So what I want to do is actually create 5 different tables. So what I'm going to do is use my string templating, right? So now I is a variable, and using the string templating, now it's going to create 5 tables called country 0, country 1, country 2, country 3, country 4. Right? Now I can use these variables inside here. So for example, let's just hypothetically we said where I equals 2. Okay, so this is going to return true for one case, and it's going to return false for all the others. So that's exactly what you see happens here. Basically, we're now looping through, we're running this query 5 times. 4 of them we're passing in false, and 1 time we're passing in true. So this gives you a good example of what it looks like to basically put Java code and then embedding SQL inside there, and then also using the string templating. So this really allows you to do powerful things. So with that said, I'm going to go through a few examples of how this can be used, and then we're going to wrap up by talking about methods. So I'm going to close this out here now and start over. So I'm going to say I'm going to create a panel, window, new window, create a HTML panel, and I'm going to go ahead and just add a simple text field, and I'm going to say, call it, maybe I'll call it country. Oops, country, and then for the label I'll say country. Okay, great. So now I'm going to go ahead and submit that guy. So we've got this quick input inside here, and now I'm going to go ahead and create a new window, and what I'm going to do is create a data model that's actually going to use the input from this. So create table visualization. I'm going to go back to our world database. I'm going to choose country. I'm going to say next. Test. Okay, but now what I'm going to do is basically use this variable, use this input, and I'm going to create a variable called country that's going to be available inside this data model. So very quickly, let's just say I did this. Session.alert country, right? So we've got this country variable, and I do alert. And now I'll go ahead and just put in, and let me exit out of designer mode so I can type something. And I'll say United. Test. So now it's printing United, and it runs that query. But now what I want to do, instead of where, $where, I'm going to say where, do we have a name? And I'll just do like, and then I'll say quote, %, and then $squiggly mark country %, and then that's it. So basically now it's going to let me do whatever I put inside there. It's going to go ahead and run that. So now it just brought back anything that has the word United in there. I'm going to go ahead and say trigger rerun, which means as I change this, it's going to update that data model. Next. I should get rid of the alert. I'll do that in a second and say finish. Okay, let's go edit underlying data model. And by the way, it might be more convenient, instead of doing session.alert, is to do session.log. That's just a more convenient way to do it. So now you see it shows up in the log here. And then in fact, now we have this little debug thing here that I'll talk about in a second. So now I go in here and I type United space A, and now we get Arab. And as I start to change that, we can see it's updating that query. And we can do smarter things about how often it should run the query and stuff like that, but this just gives you a very quick example of how we can set that up. And I should mention there's lots of ways to do filters. The focus of today is AMI script, and I think this is a good example of how that works. So now instead, let's say I want to make a button, and when I click that button, it runs this data model. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and say add field, add button, and I'm going to call it rerun. And then underneath here, I'm going to go to the AMI script, and I'm just going to say get the data model country. I'll actually type it out so you see how to do that. So we're going to go to session.get data model, and the name of the data model was country. And then from there, I can say reprocess. Okay, so that's basically going to kick that off now when I click this button. So when I click rerun, you can see it's kicking that off. We can do all sorts of fun stuff inside AMI script: hide windows, create windows, copy windows, add tabs, remove tabs, etc., etc. But this is a quick idea for that. And by the way, now to go through a little bit around how to get documentation on the AMI script. Really, the best way is to go to Help AMI Script Doc. We have two things here. We have all of the methods. These are just simple functions you can call. So for example, let's go ahead and pick a simple one, sine, right? This is going to give you the sine. You pass in a number in radians and you get back the sine. Okay, that's fun stuff. And then we've also got our class hierarchy here. So you can basically see how that's all set up. So everything's backed by panel, but let's go ahead and take table panel for a second. And then we've got lots of methods inside here for how you want to interact with table panels. So again, really this language is growing all the time. We are constantly adding more features, but this is a simple example of how that works. So I'm going to go ahead here and just talk about functions for a minute, and then we're going to wrap this up. So edit the underlying data model. So let's go ahead and say now we want to basically call a method which is going to produce this string instead. So we want to produce this string. So we're going to say, so I'm going to go to my dashboard, custom methods, and I'm going to create a method which will return a string, and I'll call it wrap, and it'll take another string, input, and all it's going to do is return, and then I'll have it return this. Copy, paste, and instead of input, it should be country. Vice versa, instead of country, it should be input. And now it's going to return that, but I need to actually escape these quotes. I'm going to escape the quotes like that. And there we go. So now what I could say is country equals wrap country. There we go. So now it's going to call that method, and now I can put inside here just $ squiggly mark country, and it's going to build that for us. So did I get this right? I have an extra quote. Apply. There we go. Test this out. And now you can see it more or less filled that in again. So basically, this is a way of creating a custom method and then calling it inside here and calling inside the data model. And there's lots of places you can use AMI script. So for example, hypothetically, if I said, maybe I want to add a custom context menu to this, add a menu item, and then when they click the menu item, it should run something inside here, et cetera, et cetera. So there's really a lot to it. But at the high level, this is more or less what I wanted to cover, which was to recap, basically it's Java style syntax with SQL, and then also string templating, and then also we have custom methods, and then there's callbacks and other things like that as well. But you can find that out by looking through the documentation. Okay, thank you, and have a good one. Bye.